The Law of One, Book 5, Fragment 10, Session 21, February 10, 1981. Jim, as we were preparing to welcome Dr. Puharich into our circle of working with Ra, we were reminded once again of the prerequisite of the tuning in the personal life that was necessary for all of those involved in the contact. Carla, in the event, Androgen never visited us here in Kentucky, but it is worth noting that Ra frequently did respond to our questions by invoking the law of confusion. Those of Ra felt that the primary importance in personal ethics of allowing people to do their own learning, make their own mistakes, cannot be overemphasized. Session 21, February 10, 1981. Questioner, Androja Puharich will be visiting later this month. Can he read the unpublished healing material? Ra, I am Ra. The entity of whom you speak has a knowledge of this material in its conscious memory in somewhat altered form. Therefore, it is harmless to allow this entity to become acquainted with this material. However, we request the mind or body or spirit complex, Henry, be sufficiently prepared by means of meditation, contemplation, or prayer before entering these workings. At present, as we have said before, this mind or body or spirit complex is not of proper vibrational distortion. Questioner, I had already determined to exclude him from these workings. I had only determined to let him read the material. The only other thing that I have noticed within the material as it exists now, there is a certain statement that will allow him to understand who I believe Spectra really was. It seems to be my duty to remove this from his knowledge to preserve the same free will that you attempted to preserve by not naming the origin of the Spectra contact in Israel. Am I correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is a matter for your discretion. Questioner, that's what I thought you'd say. Jim, most of the personal information from Session 22 is self-explanatory. The prayer that Ra speaks of in relation to Carla is the prayer of St. Francis, which Carla has used as her own personal tuning mechanism since she began channeling in 1974. It further refines the tuning done by the support group and is always prayed mentally before any session, whether telepathic or trance. The limitations which Ra speaks of in the second answer refers to Carla's rheumatoid arthritis, which was apparently chosen before the incarnation to provide an inner focus for her meditative work rather than allow the ease of outer expression that might have dissipated the inner orientation. Thus, not all disabilities are meant to yield to even the best efforts of healers, and when such a disability does not respond to any kind of healing effort, one may begin to consider what opportunities for learning and service are opened up by the disability. Ra even mentioned in the last sentence that her acceptance of her disabilities and limitations would ease the amount of pain that she suffered because of them. Carla, it was distinctly odd to be going about and walking into aromas which had no overt origin. It seemed to me throughout this time that I was being more and more sensitized, and less vibrating with my humanhood. I feel sure that the constant weight loss added to this Alice in Wonderland feeling. To the present day, I continue to have a very sensitized physical vehicle. However, my formerly tiny body has grown from size preteen 5 or 8 to its present position athwart 14 or 16, a weight gain of double the lightest weight reached during the contact. Just for a feel for where normal is for me, I used to weigh between 115 and 120 year after year. I looked quite normal at that weight. It's been interesting to feel the different weights I have been, to live with a more or less bulky vehicle. One feels stronger, the heavier one is. I was surprised at this, figuring that lighter weights would make one feel more toned and vital. It makes it easier to understand why we in America so often allow ourselves to eat to the point of obesity. It feels good. One doubts that it is a life-lengthening thing, however. The pre-incarnative choice which I made to have a body that would limit what I could do is one I have taken a long time to appreciate. It is frustrating at first not to be able to do the work one's trained to do. I loved being a librarian. I enjoyed researching for Dawn. When I could no longer work in these ways, I was profoundly puzzled and not a little upset. But then quiet years taught me so and faith, although the physical picture grew steadily worse. After Donald died, I came close to dying too, and in 1992, when at last I was able to turn the boat around, I felt the grip of death loosen and fall away. My present experience is of living in a barely working physical vehicle, taking no less than 7 medications. I walk the razor's edge between doing too much and not doing enough. The one thing that has never changed throughout this experience is my dedication to helping the wanderers of this planet. All the various skills that I have had to give up have their place in my work with people who are having trouble with their spiritual path, and so I feel fully useful at last. And yet I know that we are all most useful, not by what we do or say, but in the quality of our being. Session 22, February 10, 1981. Questioner: the instrument would like to ask a couple of questions of you. The instrument would like to know why she smells the incense at various times during the day at various places. Ra, I am Ra. This instrument has spent a lifetime in dedication to service. This has brought this instrument to this nexus in space or time with the conscious and unconscious distortion towards service, with the further conscious distortion towards service by communication. Each time, as you would put it, that we perform this working, our social memory complex vibrational distortion meshes more firmly with this instrument's unconscious distortions towards service. Thus we are becoming a part of this instrument's vibratory complex, and it a part of ours. This occurs upon the unconscious level, the level whereby the mind has gone down through to the roots of consciousness, which you may call cosmic. This instrument is not consciously aware of this slow changing of the meshing vibratory complex. However, as the dedication on both levels continues and the workings continue, there are signals sent from the unconscious in a symbolic manner. Because this instrument is extremely keen in its sense of smell, this association takes place unconsciously, and the thought form of this odor is witnessed by the entity. Questioner: secondly, she would like to know why she feels more healthy now that she has begun these sessions and feels more healthy as time goes on. Ra, I am Ra. This is a function of the free will of the entity. This entity has, for many of your years, prayed a certain set of sound vibration complexes before opening to communication. Before the trance state was achieved, this prayer remained within the conscious portion of the mind complex and, though helpful, was not as effective as the consequence of this prayer, as you would call this vibrational sound complex, which then goes directly into the unconscious level, thus more critically affecting the communication from the spiritual complex. Also, this entity has begun, due to this working, to accept certain limitations which it placed upon itself in order to set the stage for services such as it now performs. This also is an aid to realigning the distortions of the physical complex with regard to pain.